I finally managed to spare the time to present to you the project that I did when I was at Durham University just over a year ago. Uh, this is my dissertation for. This is the dissertation that I submitted in fulfillment of the requirements of the MSc Defense Development and Diplomacy program. My dissertation's title was The State and Human Security in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And because this was a 15,000 word dissertation, the only way I can present this to you very quickly is if I condense everything into a 15-minute video. And to do that, I'm just going to focus on the three key themes, three key words in the title, which is the state, human security, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo was my case study, and it can easily be substituted by any post-colonial sub-Saharan African state, because my focus really, while I was working on the DRC, I had in mind the dynamics of the post-colonial state in sub-Saharan Africa. So to do this presentation to you, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to define the state and justify it. So that's the definition of the state in general and its justification. Do we need the state in world affairs? After that, I'll talk about the post-colonial state. This has to have its own separate discussion because of the peculiarities and dynamics that are and problems that face the post-colonial state, which the consolidated states in the global north do not face. I'll then discuss human security, one of the key words in the thesis, before trying to tie it all together in a chapter I've called a multi-causal analysis of state weakness in post-colonial states. Read DRC for our case study. Then I'll do a conclusion on that. So, what is the state? I think a definition we can all rely on is one that was given by a German sociologist, Max Weber, in 1919. He said a state is a human community that successfully claims the monopoly of the legitimate use of physical force within a given territory. What this definition holds is four key components which are definitive of the state. That is the monopoly on the use of force, a defined territory, coercion, which is provision of goods and punishment if there is an abrogation by the citizens. But these three things are tied in by one thing: legitimacy. The state, for it to be accepted, has to be legitimate. It has to be seen as legitimate by the people it presides over. That's the definition of the state in general. The other factors that attach themselves to the state are sovereignty. Things such as sovereignty. Sovereignty, really, what it means is just that it means a state is recognized by other states, by other units in the international system, as existing. So, if you have sovereignty, the other units recognize you as part of the system. So that's an attribute that also defines the state, but it's got two parts in itself, where sovereignty is either juridical or empirical sovereignty. States in the, as you will see later on, states in the post-colonial bracket are said to only enjoy juridical sovereignty, which is to say they are recognized as states by law, but in reality they do not exist in effect. So this is down to the inefficacy of the state institutions. So it's like saying you've got the right to go to space, but if you don't have the technology and program to go to space, you don't really enjoy the privilege that you have. You don't really enjoy the right. That's basically what it means. And in terms of justifying the state, whether the state is necessary, I can read two quotes one from John Stuart Mill. The first one says, all that makes existence valuable to anyone depends on the enforcement of restraints upon the actions of other people. This is John Stuart Mill writing on liberty. From this, as a state justification, this just means that there's a need for an authority to oversee relations between individuals within a defined territory, so as to punish and reward conduct insofar as it is good conduct or bad conduct to the functioning of the society. And my thesis really only came together because of Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan and his quote on justifying the state. He presumes that without the state overseeing smooth relations between individuals in a given territory, we are in fact in a state of nature. And his state of nature metaphor, he says nothing can be achieved in the state of nature. In the state of nature, he says, there is no place for industry because the fruit therein is uncertain, and consequently no culture of the earth, no navigation, no use of the commodities that may be imported by sea, no commodious buildings, no arts, no letters, no society. And the condition of man, this is his famed conclusion. The condition of man, if there is no state, the condition of man, if there is no state overseeing the smooth running of relations between individuals, he says the condition of man is that of continual fear, danger of violent death, and life of man is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. He says without the state, man cannot enjoy liberty, cannot enjoy the public goods that is worked for, and really he presumes anarchy in a bad sense. While I only justify the state because there are some people who believe that the state is unnecessary. If you read Kropotkin's essay on anarchy, there are anarchists who actually believe that the world would work better if there's no state, if there's no authority. But I'll not go into that. So that's the definition of the state, its justification, and the reason why states exist is this. Simply, if we were to summarize why states exist, is the maintenance of law and order at home and protection against aggression from abroad. That's what in summary I can say is the justification for the state. Coming now to the post-colonial state. The post-colonial state is a special case in that all those things that I've said the state is supposed to do, all those things that I've said are justification for the state. The post-colonial state has been unable to achieve them for its population. It's not been able to provide security against aggression from abroad. It's not been able to be an arbiter of society where public goods are distributed fairly. In fact, it's actually it turns out to be one of the competitors and leading to conflict between. It's actually one of the competitors, not a judge, leading to conflict in the state. So because of this, the strong state, the consolidated state I talked about in the global north, which is able to provide security and public goods to its population, is thought of as the Leviathan, which is what Thomas Hobbes called the power that would make sure that there's security in a state. But the post-colonial state has been called the lame Leviathan, insofar as it is not able to provide the goods as a strong Leviathan, which is as the Leviathan would do. So the post-colonial state has been defined as a lame Leviathan, and this is due to the effect of its colonial legacies, and also because of the strategies that African elites employed when they took over power, which were rational strategies in the short term, but in the long term ended up being actually very inimical to their statehood. So the rational strategies that that the Africans took, which defined the colonial state, which are peculiar to the post-colonial state, and not to the consolidated states in the global south, that most of these African states became client states in the Cold War. So really, their policies were dictated not by themselves, but by outsiders. Most of these states took what's called a personalized identity, where a leader would identify himself with the state, because there was no legitimacy to rule for him. There was a personality of cult, which meant that everyone would be loyal to the leader, but institutions did not develop. So the personalized identity is in opposition to institutions, to state institutions, where state institutions are better than a personalized identity. Then there was also this centralized overdeveloped morphology, whereby, because the only thing that post-colonial states, the only viable industry post-colonial states had at independence was the government bureaucracy. So all the people got absorbed by the government bureaucracy, and thus it became overdeveloped. You are basically having more people employed by a sector that does not generate any money. Then there was also the prebendal or rentier state and the extractive impulse, where, because these post-colonial states had become overdeveloped in the bureaucracy, but without any sources of income, they just started extracting money and relying on rents, which led generally to the weakness of the post-colonial state. So those are two things. The state justified and defined, the post-colonial state's proclivities presented. So the third key word in my title was human security. Human security is just basically the new form that security takes, whereby previously, when people thought of security, they thought about the military power, military force, hard power, end of. But over the years, especially at the end of the Cold War, people started realizing that if the state is just there to provide security from aggression from abroad, you could have that state that's strong, that's got a strong military, but even though no aggression from abroad comes, people could still be dying of disease, of hunger, of all sorts of things, without, or even internal conflict, without there being an invasion from abroad. So security was redefined in 1994 by the UNDP to mean that people should be secure in all the domains, in these 7 domains. So food security, health security. The 7 domains are food, health, economic, environmental, personal, political, and community. What these 7 domains now mean is that people should have freedom from fear and freedom from want. In fact, the UNDP concluded its definition of human security by saying, in the final analysis, human security is a child who did not die, a disease that did not spread, a job that was not cut, an ethnic tension that did not explode in violence, a dissident who was not silenced. So this is very comprehensive. This human security is basically an expansion of security from the state as the referent object to the individual of the referent object of security. So whereas where you were thinking that the state should be made secure, you are now thinking about individuals should be secure from hunger, from food, from famine, from they should be economically secure, environmental protection, all these come in. And all these things taken together define human security. And it makes sense. But how best can human security be provided? That is the big question now when you really get to discussing this further. So that's human security. And to tie all everything in what I've said now, we come to a multi-causal analysis of state weakness in the DRC. In looking at the DRC, what I was looking at, there is a state in the DRC. What has made it fail to provide what we've defined as human security, to provide what's called the raison d'etre of the state, the reason for the state being in existence. Why has the DRC state failed to do this? Because if you look at what we call the deadly statistics, there have been 17 civil wars between 1960 and 2010 in the DRC. 5.4 million deaths due to war-related causes since 1998. 2 million people were displaced. There is food, health, physical insecurity. So the DRC fits into that sort of frame where there is a state, but it's not providing the public goods. In fact, there is 5.4, just to take this figure, 5.4 million people deaths. That's in peacetime. That's an unacceptable figure. So I wanted to know now why, while there's a state in the DRC, what has caused it to be unable to provide human security. This is why we tie in the state and human security in the DRC. Why has the state failed to provide human security there? So I found that there are in my multi-causal analysis of state weakness in the DRC, I found that on the international level, because obviously I write at length about it, but here, because it's just a 15-minute presentation, I'm just going to use shorthand. So I found that on the international level, the colonial legacy is a potent cause of state insecurity. If you look at the DRC, when it gained independence, in 1960, there were no educated people to take over the bureaucracy straight away. There was infighting. Patrice Lumumba, the legitimate ruler, was killed on the instigation of the United States. This is international interference. So colonial legacy simply meant that in the DRC, because there are people of different ethnicities, they are not necessarily beholden to one center of power. So there was this competition where at the end of independence, there was actually a civil war in the DRC. Kasai Katanga province seceded. There was an invasion from Angola. So at the end of independence, DRC did not have the monopoly on the use of force, and this has fed into continued insecurity in that manner. So DRC has never known peace. It's been cyclical wars up to even today, 2014. It's been cyclical wars that's what I call the colonial legacy when I'm thinking about the DRC. Then also, the DRC is a bad neighborhood. In the science, this is actually accepted as a potent cause of insecurity, being in a bad neighborhood. If you think about the Rwandan genocide, the conflict in the Central African Republic, Angola was at war, Uganda, all the neighbors of Uganda, Burundi, they were all in flux. So what this means, the bad neighborhood argument means that you are in an area where there are wars and civil strife around you, weapons proliferate, and each disagreement easily turns into war because there are weapons for people to fight with. So that's on the international level. This is the shorthand for what causes the state weakness in DRC on the international level. And going to the state level, what caused the DRC to be weak as it is now, the post-colonial state to be weak as it is now, we can blame it on the Mobutu Sese Seko rule. The actions of Mobutu Sese Seko evidently were ruinous to the DRC and continue to be felt long after he's gone, long after he's been deposed from power, and long after his death. So on the state level, what the elites in the post-colonial state did, what causes the state to be weak there is the self-defeating nature of the short-term survival strategy aimed at obviating the lack of legitimacy that these elites had. And these short-term strategies means that some people were excluded, and the people who were excluded mobilized for conflict, so everything is resolved by conflict. But as I say, the short-term strategies that, for instance, Mobutu used were being a client of the United States. He personalized the state, and pretty much was involved in an extractive impulse where the state would just be taking money, initially as taxes, then it moved on to, when taxes dried up, to extortion. So this is what causes the weakness of the state in the DRC. So in conclusion, I would say my presentation, what my project covered was this. What is the state? We defined it as a human community that is a monopoly on the legitimate use of physical force within a given territory. The post-colonial state is the same state, but the difference is it takes the same definition, but the difference it has from the general state, the consolidated states in the north, is that it is an imported idea, it is an imposed idea, and it does not have a fit, because the post-colonial state in Africa has many ethnicities and because the boundaries are artificial as well, the territories are were artificially drawn in Africa. You've got different people of different ethnicities in the same. It's called suffocation when you've got different people of different ethnicities in the same territory, and they are supposed to now be beholden to a power that they do not recognize. So these are the differences what the post-colonial state have to the consolidated northern states. Human security is basically the expanding of the definition of security from military force, from the state having a military force to deter aggression from abroad, to the state now actually supposed to do much more in provision. The state should now do the same attention the state gives to the military is the same attention it has to give in the other domains, like economic, creating jobs, health, food security, personal security, and freedom of speech, things like that. The state should actually provide those goods with the same agency as it provides military security. What has made the post-colonial state fail to provide human security? I have said it is basically the nature of the post-colonial state and the colonial legacies. Perhaps in 200 years, perhaps in 300 years, the post-colonial state will be consolidated enough to be able to provide human security. Because if you think about the consolidated states of the north, of the global north, the United States is 300 years old, or nearly 300 years old, and still it does not blanket provide for human security. So it might be an issue of development. So I'm actually now answering, what will it take to achieve human security for the post-colonial state? Perhaps it will take, there's no doubt that there has to be a state, a legitimate state power in the territory, and then it needs a lot of time for everyone to develop a national identity, a single national identity, as does the states in the global north, where this national identity is actually a catalyst for the national identity is what people rally around, not their ethnic identities, which tend to lead to, because ethnic fragmentation tends to lead to conflict. But if there's no ethnic fragmentation, it might be that this post-colonial state will start to achieve the same level of efficacy as does the globalized, the consolidated states of the global north. That is my project, and obviously it's all clear in my head, but it's very hard to disseminate information. I think Steve Pinker called it the case of knowledge, where you don't know what to present and what to leave out, as you don't want to be patronizing. But I will be very happy to answer questions. If you put questions under my presentation, I'll be very happy to answer questions on what I might have left out in this presentation. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.